Hey everybody, welcome to the Office 365 Pulse. We have the whole crew here this week. We are going to be doing, let's see, I'm going to get my mic there. We are going to be doing a special two-part series this week because Ignite had so many announcements that we like to keep the show, around a half hour, 45 minutes, but we knew we could not do that and cover everything. So today's episode, we're going to cover everything that is in development on the roadmap. And then tomorrow we'll cover all of the other categories. So in development means that they are behind the scenes working on it at Microsoft. They're building out the features. They're working on how it's going to work. Nothing has rolled out to anyone's tenants. It's just something that they're working on. Maybe they're running it in the dog food tenants, the Microsoft tenants, but they're working on building it. So we're going to go through those items first. There are a lot of them because most everything that got announced at Ignite rolled out to in development. So we had a couple of weeks of nothing on the roadmap, very short shows, and then I think the whole count was like 354 items.
Yeah.
So we will go through it today for you guys, and then tomorrow we'll follow up with the others. So I'm going to start off and give my buddy Tom the floor to give us his first item on the roadmap. Uh-oh, we got Tamara going. Oh no. So we'll see what Tom takes
Because I
first.
know what he's going to take.
No, actually, I'm going to leave that one for you because you really wanted that one, and I live with you, and I need to watch myself. so, actually, I'm going to scroll down a little bit on the list. There's three that have to do with Microsoft lists that I'll cover since they're all kind of consolidated together.
Made me so happy.
Yes, this one's really cool, especially the first one. Microsoft List, rules built on SharePoint. So they are going to enable you to have simple if-then rules based on changes to list information to set reminders and send notifications. This is huge because I think a fair number of notifications and workflows and flows and stuff that I build is, hey, if this is the case, then send out this notification. And sometimes we have to do that with info path because of the way that we need to lay the form out. This is going to give us additional capabilities now from a default list item form, which is just awesome. The more that we get that and the less that we have to rely upon having to go more heavy duty power apps or having to still go with info path because we're not ready for power apps yet, the better. So that's really cool. Followed up on that, they're now giving us calendar views for any list that has items that have
Yes.
date columns. This is
Thank goodness.
awesome. Yes, because it used to be if you tried to get a calendar view for something that was a list item that had a date, good luck. You're a braver person than I am. Now it's just you call up the view, say, okay, what's the date that you're going to use? What's the date you want to use for the calendar? And you're off and ready to go. So that's one of the new types of list formats that you're going to be able to have. Can't
Now,
see that.
something that is important to distinguish about this is that calendar view is a thing when you're talking about like web part development. So if you're on a website somewhere and you're getting, the little calendar control, that's what they're meaning by this. And so before in SharePoint, we had this thing where you could create a view based on a calendar for any list, and it created something that you wanted to behave like a calendar, but it never really did. That is not what we are getting in the modern view. We are getting a calendar view. So this is going to be a very, very good get. I think we have been asking for this since the dawn of time.
Yes.
Yeah, it kind of goes with your backdrop, Tom.
Yes, this is the calendar that we've been using up to date now. Here, hand me another chisel.
Yeah. So this is probably one of the most exciting things. And I love it because when you look at the date, it says coming in September calendar year. So it should be coming in the next couple of days.
Yeah,
So we
September
should be seeing that.
2nd, it should be here.
So we should see it very, very soon.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing that one. In the final one, in this one, I think we've talked about in the past, but it bears repeating because it's going to be really cool. And that is for your Microsoft list, you will now be allowed to have comments in the list. So you can put a comment on a list or comment on list items using @mentions. It'll draw the person's attention to it, and that stays with the list item. So again, ways to say, okay, my list has these 5 fields. It'd be really nice if I could give a little conversational context to what's going on here. You're not going to be able to do that. So those 3 things that are coming out as part of Microsoft Lists, but also end up flowing into the whole SharePoint arrangement. Awesome stuff. Really looking forward to seeing that.
Me too. Me too. All right, Tamara, let's hear yours since you're so excited.
Yes, I am. Message recall and exchange online. So we have this. So the Outlook for Windows message recall feature is extremely popular with users, yet it doesn't always work so well.
I love that sentence. I love that sentence.
Never quite work. Like the one way to make everybody read your
to it.
I know the one way to make everybody read your email is to try and recall it. That's how you get everyone to read your email.
That says, Tamara wants you to recall this message. You know what I immediately say?
What juicy
I'm
content
gonna
in
read
that
that
message.
sucker.
Yeah, I'm going to read it. So part of the problem is that the recall is client based, and the recall can only happen if the recipient also uses Outlook. So with millions of users and mailboxes on Office 365, we're now able to improve upon that feature by performing the recall directly in the cloud in O365 mailboxes. So it doesn't matter which email client the recipient uses, the recall takes place in their Office 365 mailbox. And when their client syncs their mail, the message is gone. So while there's still some conditions where recall still won't happen, like the message is being read by the recipient, it's not going to just suck it out of their hands. Moving the recall to the cloud significantly improves the recall success rate. And additionally, we'll now also offer an aggregate message recall status report to make it simpler to see for whom the recall succeeded and for whom it failed.
Yes,
I
so you
think
can
I
see
think
who
the
read.
I was going to say I think the recall feature that we need to have is push the button and a picture of Will Smith with his little laser thing pops up, like that, and he just pops out the last 15 seconds and you never saw it.
I'm going to say a really nerdy comment here, but this is something that I actually think is stupid cool. So I got into IT through Exchange. The reason recall didn't work for the longest time was natively how email was originally designed when there wasn't storage on computers and the internet, where you had to have storage on your computers. So the original email systems and email clients were designed to be client-driven solutions, which is why some stuff, even though Exchange kind of changed that game, it was still mimicking the earlier solutions. So the fact that they're now developing something that is at its core developed to be server-side focused and kind of go away from that, like that to me is cool. It's kind of like a clear evolution in technology in a way, or a step forward away from how it was historically designed. So the nerd in me thinks this is awesome.
And then one other thing that has really got me excited, and I'm like, oh my God, why doesn't it just work this way? And now it's going to. SharePoint is a new way to add images to SharePoint.
Yes,
so page authors can now copy and paste images on the canvas to automatically create a new image web part.
Yay!
Authors can also drag and drop or paste images on top of existing image web parts or the title region to replace the image previously in the web part.
Yep.
So I think that is beautiful.
Yeah.
It takes so little to make us happy.
I know, right? Well, I've got another one. I've got another one that I think is a little one that makes all of us happy. This one especially, yeah. So Microsoft Teams overflow meetings. So this is super fun. Yes. So when attendees exceed the meeting attendee limit, the meeting will scale to accommodate up to 20,000 people into an experience where they can watch only. This is good because sometimes you just have to throw a meeting out there and you don't know if everyone's going to attend or if no one's going to attend. And you can't always plan for every possible scenario. So you just got to throw it out there and see what happens. We're talking about large town hall meetings. We're talking about, some of these conferences. I'm sure some of these are learnings they're finding as they're hosting some of these, using as a platform for these conferences. We're talking about schooling events, different things like that. So I love that they're doing this because it's making the experience soft for users, not just a you can't get in here meeting. So I love that. They're also doing some things for Room Remote for Microsoft Teams rooms on Windows. So you're allowed to control in-room meeting devices for a new experience on the Teams mobile app. So you can turn your mic on and off, turn camera on and off, leave the meeting. So different things like that. They're making that experience easier, as well as they're giving you some video filters so that when you do come online, you can look all pretty to customize your appearance, right? To
I'm
subtly
so looking forward to that
adjust
one.
the lighting levels to customize your appearance. So they're trying to make the whole getting into these meetings, being online, make it a whole easier experience. So I think that's all really great stuff that's coming to continue making that experience easier. So those are just a couple of updates, rolled them together because they're coming to Teams and it's kind of about that meeting experience there. So a couple of changes they're making there. How about you, Adam?
Yeah, so I'll do some nerdy security compliance things because we all know
Of course
that's what I like and that's what I do, and I figured no one else is going to talk about it. I'm sure we'll then switch back. There's still tons of updates to Teams and SharePoint stuff, but to get some of the ones that I think are kind of cool that are coming out. So first and foremost, this could actually legit be a game changer. So nestled right at the top, they have one that doesn't give a ton of details, but it's basically automatic sensitivity labeling in Office apps on Windows. Basically, if you have Microsoft apps for enterprise, whatever they're calling it now, what used to be Office Pro Plus, they're more or less saying they're giving you the ability to go through and review the content and based on the content apply sensitivity labels to it. The reason why I say this is a game changer is the only way you can do automatic labels right now is by saying, like, I want every document in the SharePoint site to have a certain label on it or something like that. It's limited to the total number of SharePoint libraries that you can do that to, and it's a premium feature gated behind Azure AD Premium P2. And so the fact that it acts like this is just going to be natively coming to the apps, I don't know that if it's going to be gated behind license or anything. The roadmap doesn't say that. It's socketed for Q4 of this year. But the fact that it's coming to be part of the native apps and is going to be intelligent enough to scan the content and apply it there is like literally that can be game changing for people that want to do IRM, MIP based type content on compliance for their organization. Now, some stuff, so like a lot of my customers have to deal with like CUI data, which like CUI data is anything classified. Like you probably can't train an AI to do that. But think about ramifications for like HIPAA data or FINRA data where there are patterns that it follows. If you could just, hey, we're a healthcare organization like, I don't know, Tom, and you could go through and say anything that's healthcare related, anything that's HIPAA related, I want you to go through and analyze, and if you find it, put a label on it. If you could just put that into the native functionality of your user's Office suite, like that's literally game changing. So that's really, really cool. Super excited to see where that's coming through. And then I'm going to paint with a very broad stroke here. Microsoft is redoing the Compliance Center. I'm going to read what they actually say in their update because it's kind of funny. But basically, what used to be the Compliance Manager and also the Compliance Score solutions are being combined into the Compliance Manager. So it's keeping the Compliance Manager name, but they're basically taking two solutions and putting it together. And so it's basically created a more centralized hub for everything you might want to do compliance related. And there's 9 or 10 different feature updates in here of new features they're announcing to go a part of the launch of the Compliance Center. Stuff like, oh, hey, you can automatically set it to ignore signatures. So like maybe you're going through and looking for some compliance stuff and say, okay, we need HIPAA data, but in the disclaimer you have for your email that goes out for your organization, it says a word that flags HIPAA data. Well, if it literally flags every single one of your emails because it has that disclaimer, it's not very helpful, right? So some of the bypasses and stuff like that they're doing is really cool. Some insider, intelligent AI type compliance things that they're doing, just really, really cool. But as someone who lives and breathes compliance and security nowadays with a lot of our customers, seeing them to continue to develop heavily in the creation of these systems, seeing a new solution coming out and stuff, it's great. I'm not gonna wax and wane on all the features they're doing here, but they're doing a lot and it's really cool and I'm happy to see it.
Cool.
One other one that's coming when you're kind of talking about the compliance center, it made me think of one for actually like kind of two things that go along for the admin centers and changes that are coming. The SharePoint and OneDrive admin centers are getting consolidated into one. So we're together,
Finally.
we're apart, we're together, we're apart. But to be able to manage the permissions, manage the sharing, manage the policies, that's going to get consolidated into one spot. So you're still going to have the same level of granular control in the two different tools. You're just going to be able to do it from one spot instead of doing it from two separate spots. So that's really good. And then also they have announced that the compliance score. So this is one that we've seen it right now. It's only in enterprise, but we've seen that they've moved it to the general availability is in development. So they're moving forward with trying to make it generally available for all environments. So I don't totally know what that's going to mean. The productivity score is pretty cool. In the enterprise clients that we can go in and look at it on, you're able to go in and get a score. It's able to then look at you compared to other organizations, your size, kind of matching your footprint, seeing what you're doing. It's got some great data then that you can then use to kind of make some decisions with of what you're doing. It's not available in some of the other tenants yet, but the first step of getting it available inside of, say, government or DoD or education is going to be getting it generally available across all of the tenants. And so it's still in kind of like a beta preview. And so I'm excited to see that one getting ready to go into general availability or in development for general availability. So excited about that one. So that's another kind of admin thing that kind of crosses into things I love to do. So cool. All right, I'll pass it to. Anyway, go ahead, Tamara.
There's another one in Microsoft Teams, and that's PowerPoint live presentations to Teams. And I'm a little ambivalent about this. I don't know. I'm conflicted. I don't quite know how to feel about this. So PowerPoint live presentations can assist users in making their presentations engaging and inclusive. Everyone in the audience can navigate the view of their own slides and provide instant feedback in the form of live reactions. That's exactly what I want to have happening when I'm doing a presentation. I want to see how many likes and hearts and sad faces I'm getting because I'm not distracted enough while trying to do a presentation. Also provide comments and rate the presentation at the end. The live presentations are generally available on PowerPoint for the web, and Microsoft plans to bring this to Teams to further enable audience engagement right from Teams. So I don't know how I feel about my users being able to go through my PowerPoint presentation when I'm delivering it, and I would like to speak to the slides. So I'm ambivalent about that one.
Yeah, it's hard. I think it's one of the ones that people want to be able to get, but I agree with you as a presenter. I don't know if I want them to tell me they like or don't like slide 7 if I'm on slide 3, because that could be very distracting.
Exactly.
But Tamara, another one that I do like, and I was in a webinar with you this week where we got asked this multiple times, and I was like, thank you, Microsoft, when I saw it here. They're updating the functionality for downloading participant reports in team meetings. So we're going to just say thank you, because meeting organizers, especially teachers and event organizers, often need to know who joined, how many people joined their team meetings. So with new enhancements, will allow you to, this one's important, to download the report after the meeting. We've also added new data into the report that allows you to better manage your attendance.
After the meeting, guys. After the meeting.
Yeah, it was kind of one of those ones that as Tamara was answering how it worked, I was like, oh, this one's hard. This one's a hard one to answer because you hear yourself answering the question and you're like, I know this is not the answer that sounds right to their ears, but it is the answer. And I know it's going to get better. So then I see it on the roadmap. And now we can just say, it's on the roadmap, y'all. They are making it better.
Mm-hmm.
It's
That-
like when we find stuff on the roadmap and I get asked about it, I'd be like, well, it's shit right now, but don't worry.
This was
Wow,
just their first try.
that's great.
It's getting
Uh,
better. It's always getting better.
It's always getting better, we hope. And speaking of getting better, we hope, a new Microsoft Stream web app. This is one item on the roadmap. Basically, the new video app in Microsoft 365 brings together all your videos loaded to Microsoft Teams, SharePoint, OneDrive, Yammer, and across the suite, and enables you to easily create new videos and get to videos shared with and recommended for you. That all sounds well and good, but sitting in one of the stream sessions at Ignite, oh my God, they are really changing stream big time. Where normally it gets stored in Azure, things are now going to be stored in SharePoint and OneDrive in your Teams workspace, which part of me is like, what about all the the multiple playback speeds and sizes and stuff like that? They acknowledge they're going to lose a few things in this. However, from the perspective of doing permissions on your videos,
They're going to gain.
Oh my God, yes, they are going to gain.
Well, they're trying to make it more ubiquitous with the rest of the Office suite. They're trying to make a stream video or a video be the same as a file, be the same as a folder. Exactly. So, and that's cool concept, at least.
It is, and I think it's going to be good in the long. Well, it's going to be good in the long run. What it's going to take to get us there was like, okay, starting now, this is going to happen. Starting now, this other thing's going to happen. Keep an eye on this one because you're going to have to do some stuff that you may not be prepared to do yet. Like, stuff's going to go into video folders in your Teams workspace that are in that channel. So things are going to be spread out in different locations now. On the flip side, you're going to have more control over it. So just keep an eye open for that one. I think there'll be more news coming out on that one. There was another one here that I had not heard that this was happening, but as a former Lotus Notes MVP, this is kind of cool because we used to do this all the time in Lotus Notes, and that is in Microsoft List, you now have an offline mode, which means people have the ability to take Microsoft List offline so you can get your information in scenarios where you have little to no internet access. One of the things that Lotus Notes used to do really well is you could work remote, and then when you got back and connected, boom, you pushed up all your changes, life was grand. And we used to talk about nobody can do this. Well, guess what? Other people can now do this. So I'm really curious as to how this is going to look and how it's going to work. And the ability to be able to say, hey, you can take your laptop and go sit on the deck with no internet access and update all your list items and then come back in the house where you have internet access and you're off and ready to go. So keep an eye open for that one. Again, I had not heard or seen anything about this one, so I'm interested to see where it ends up heading.
I have multiple other things. Do you have anything else you want to throw out there, Jen?
Oh yeah, there's plenty of things, but go ahead and then I'll keep going. There's plenty.
Okay, I'll do one or two nerdy things, and I'll take a break, and we'll come back to the nerdy things later. So I feel like this just needs to be said because I think that this is really cool, and this is one of those good guy Microsoft updates. So if you use Windows Virtual Desktop, they've already put some tools and stuff in place to allow you to micromanage the cost a little bit better. So you could choose your deployment strategy. I've had to do this with some of my customers. So you could decide, okay, well, we know 4 users can go on each virtual desktop VM that we're spinning up, so I want to put 4 users on one and then spin up another, and you can choose to do that for cost savings. But basically, they're doing a new in development thing for virtual desktop where you basically, when it's not being used, so no one's logged into a VM, you can shut it down, and the moment someone tries to log into it again, it will basically boot it up. Right now, if I go in and shut something down, I then have to manually go in and turn it back on before someone can connect to it. They're basically taking out the middleman, where you can basically do it where, okay, I'm giving these VMs to my users to use, maybe you're some sort of, government organization, so you have VMs because it's more secure, but you don't want to have someone come in and turn them on and spin them up every day because you're trying to do it for cost savings. Literally, it will just sit in a dormant state that you're not paying for. And the moment someone tries to connect to it, it will realize someone's trying to connect to it and spin it up and allow them to log in. And basically, it's literally Microsoft designing a system that's only going to charge you when people are logged into it. And like, to me, that's the epitome of like good guy Microsoft. So I think that's cool.
Nice.
Cool. I will say there's two things with Microsoft Team meetings that we haven't touched on yet. And one is manage your meeting options in the meeting. So you can go in and say you accidentally set up a lobby and now you're getting a pop-up every single person and you got to allow them in. You can go in and turn off the lobby or allow everybody to bypass the lobby. So I think that's going to be great. And also, Microsoft has added the equivalent of flicking the lights on and off 5 minutes before your meeting is over. So what they're going to do is they'll automatically issue a 5-minute warning.
Isn't that great?
When the meeting is nearing the close, and it'll be triggered for all the scheduled private and channel meetings. So yeah, basically Microsoft Teams now has last call.
Well, I like to, we'll get into more of this in our updates later on. I like how they're doing stuff like a literal virtual commute mode. And like some of the things that they're doing like that to like, because they're like stuff that you found is really annoying before, like actually had some positive benefits. So we're going to start like manufacturing these scenarios. I kind of see that with like the last call type notice of like, hey, this is something like, you know, when you have those people that like peer into the meeting room and stare at you in the office to see if you're in there. Oh, hey, that means we should wrap up our meeting. Stuff like that.
I had a special look for those people in that office room. It was like the drop dead look. It was awesome. It made every meeting end.
Yep.
I've seen that look. You didn't want to get that look from her. It was not good.
So going kind of along with that, I think there were some things, that they talked about, some tools that they're giving management and stuff like that to predict happiness, to predict like quality of life. So they're bringing some of these softer skills into the technology to help us kind of get a pulse of where things are going. They're also bringing some things into the compliance tools to check for trends along suicidal thoughts or just negative behaviors, negative patterns. Again, none of this is to get necessarily anybody in trouble or to play cop or anything like that, but it's to, add a level of protection and to, just add some safety to it. Yeah. They're finding a lot of things that are coming out right now that there's been so many advantages from everyone going home and working during a time of COVID. But one of the greatest disadvantages is the line between work and personal life has blurred to where everyone's got this scalable work-life balance now where they're working, taking breaks, and our work days are getting much, much longer. And we're not taking vacations and we're not doing these things. So there is some fear and there's some responsibilities with managers to be able to protect the well-being of our employees and making sure we're getting rest and making sure we're getting these breaks. And I mean, if you noticed in Ignite, they were doing things, are we meditating? Are we calming our minds? Are we finding that peace? And so I think we're seeing some of those tools naturally be included into the things that we're doing. There's also, I don't know if you guys saw in the new Word features that have come out on Word Online, there's the references when it's reviewing and stuff like that. It gives you a score with how well your document is written for inclusivity and sensitive word phrasings. And do you have any gender specific language? Are your pronouns correct? And it's kind of checking do you have racial biases? All of that, like it's checking it. You can set different filters and stuff like that. And they're just kind of adding all of these tools in there to make us just better humans. And I love it because it goes right with Microsoft's, empowering every human to do more. And it's like, that's the real world stuff, like every day. I get really geeked out about that kind of stuff because I feel like that's their mission statement actually coming to me. Like, I'm not going to be able to go do something crazy great, but I can do something small using these tools, and I love it. And everybody
Moving-
doing something small is
I was going to say,
awesome.
one of the things that they talked about that's not on the roadmap, but it'll be here soon enough, and that is they are partnering with, what was it, Headspace?
Headspace, yep.
Yeah.
Headspace, yeah, which is a mindfulness type organization that teaches you how to focus on your breathing and how to, meditate basically. And that's going to be part and parcel of like Teams and the workplace analytics type stuff. I'm like, that says something right there, that they're taking something as completely non-tech related and pulling that in. One thing that is on the roadmap is Microsoft Teams new Together mode scenes. And Together mode as it sits right now, the stadium view, I'm like, eh. But one of the things that I saw in one of the sessions that they had was they had a picture of brain patterns where what your mind looks like when you've got all these individual pictures out there and everybody's got their own background and everybody's doing things. It's very active and very draining. Where if you have together mode, it's filtering out a lot of that noise. So you now get to a situation where you can now focus, it's less mentally fatiguing. And it's like, okay, that's cool. Well, one of the things that they're doing with Together mode is they're bringing in new scenes. So you've got
awesome.
like a
Coffee
conference room, a coffee shop, some really nice looking coffee shops, to tell you the truth. There are things that I might actually look at and go, okay, I'm going to have a team meeting and I want to pull it together in Together mode that makes it look like we're in a conference room or it makes it look like we're in a coffee shop. And it was funny because they'd have people sitting there. It's like, you can even high five each other. So you have two people sitting next to each other going, trying to line up their hands and do high five virtually. But again, you're right. They're making a real effort to focus on the softer things that in this COVID work from home, always on scenario. And even when you're not on work, you better be on at home because you got about, half as many things there that you got to handle. This is a good thing. I like to see what Microsoft is doing to actually think about the people who are using their software.
Yeah.
I'm happy I have you guys because I'm like cynical about everything. So you guys being like, "Oh, this is so great." They're looking at to make things better. Like that's not the view that I necessarily like. That's not my first reaction. But I love having the positive balance in my life that you guys are.
You're welcome. We're here for you.
We're here to help.
One of the things I thought was cool, and I'm sure this is something that that Tamara specifically, I'm sure you guys as well too, is going to kind of think is neat. Did y'all see the Q&A stuff for Microsoft Word?
That was kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is the idea that looking how help and how finding stuff has evolved over time is one of my favorite examples of like how the technology has grown. If you guys remember Clippy back in the day, like
Clippy.
I'm sure you remember
It
Clippy.
looks like you're creating a resume.
Yep.
Would you like some help?
Well, one of my favorite things
No.
was when they were pushing Windows 2000, their second major marketing push. They specifically advertised that you could disable Clippy, like that was part of the marketing. But anyway, so for a while, help and search and stuff has been better in Microsoft. It's kind of become, if you went through and said like, table, it would bring up, what they called contextual tabbing, where it would bring up the options that you could do stuff in tables. And that was a pretty large step forward from literally just like a control find that it did back in the day with like the previous generation of stuff. That's how it did it. Well, they're taking it another step forward. And I don't know if this is Project Cortex related or anything like that, but it's some of the similar type technologies where you can now start doing stuff with like actual Q&A and searches. The example that they give in the roadmap that I thought was really cool, say you have a report that's on water quality for a system or something like that, you could go in and do stuff like where does the city water originate from, or how to reduce the amount of lead in water. And putting in the question of how do you reduce the amount of lead in water will be able to understand what you're asking in the question and point you in the right direction of the document of where it is. It's like you could probably control find lead and see if you could go find it that way, but it actually has the intelligence to understand of the question you're asking and how that could potentially be answered. And the fact that you can probably do that without having exact matching keywords, I thought is just so cool. And it shows a really cool evolution in data processing and relevance of what they're doing with some of their stuff. It's really neat.
Well, I'm going to mention one more, and then if I don't get to talk at all the rest of the time, I'll be perfectly happy. SharePoint, modern pages get collapsible sections.
That one was so cool.
That one is so cool. Again, I will mention the L word, Lotus notes again. We used to be able to do collapsing things on a document and stuff like that, where in order to do that, like on a SharePoint page, you kind of had to get a third-party add-in, and that had its own issues. Now you're just going to be able to say, hey, I want to have these sections collapse in an accordion or a tabbed visualization. They're going to be collapsed by default with accordions, but they can be set to show expanded. That's going to make for some really cool things you're going to be able to do with pages to get a lot of information above the scroll that they can tab through and see, instead of having to go get it like, 14 scrolls down, and it's important, but there's no other way you can do it, or you have to set it up in tiny little columns, and that's a problem. So this is something I think that's going to be I want to say game changer. I thought, no, I don't like that term, but it's going to help a lot when it comes to designing pages that are actually useful.
Now, here's one that I think is going to make some people happy. It will make some people very happy if it's going to be enabled for some of the tenants that we've been working with. Office 365 cross-tenant people search with some limited availability. There are some customers that, for various reasons, are running multiple tenants, and they have to run multiple tenants, but they yet work together as if they're one company. Do you know what's very difficult about that? Finding people across those different tenants and inviting them to different things and communicating with them and understanding when I'm here, it's this, and when I'm there, it's this, and doing all of that. In fact, even sitting down and mapping that out is an effort unto itself. That trying to simplify for people can be very difficult. So I'm excited to see that they're working on a feature that for customers with multiple tenants, it's going to allow people to search across the tenants and find people. Now, I am sure there's going to be limitations and there's going to be restrictions to this, because in many cases, there are very good reasons why you have multiple tenants, and that might be to segregate and separate the people for a purpose, which means you might not be able to do it. So you're still going to have governance and you're going to have compliance that's going to come into this. So it may not be a silver bullet that fixes everything, but it's great to see them thinking through this scenario and seeing what we can come up with. So even if this solves 80% of that problem for us, it would reduce a lot of the questions we get from people.
So Tamara, you want to make your final shot here before you have to leave for your other webinar?
I'm all good. I've got to bounce, but thank you. We'll see you guys tomorrow or the next day for the rest of the categories.
The rest
of the story.
Well, I'll keep going with a couple of them. Tamara, we'll see you when you hop off. We've got SharePoint list or Microsoft list. They're going to have a couple of new features. The yes, no button, the column experience is going to be changing. So it's going to be changing in quick edit mode. It's going to have a new designer experience, and it's also going to meet some different accessibility standards. So the yes, no experience is going to be changing. So I thought that was really cool. The other experience that is going to be changing in the SharePoint list is going to be the people experience. So when you're going in and out of quick edit, you're going to get the people, they called it the people pill experience. It's going to get, you're going to just get the drop down that you're getting other places inside of Office 365. So it's going to be that consistent people experience, which I think is great. And then the other one that you're getting is the Power Automate and the forms are going to be moving. This actually makes a lot of sense. So I don't think it's going to be very hard for people to get their arms around once they're going. But let me see if I can find that item so I can read it off to us. they're going to a new category called integrate. On the Microsoft list, they're going to have a drop-down menu called integrate, and it's going to be all of the things integrate powered by SharePoint. So at the top of the Microsoft list, the top level menu item will be called integrate, and it's going to be the home of all the features that are used to expand and extend the list experiences. So for instance, Power Apps, Power Automate, and then any other future things that they're coming that will be used to expand that list experience. So that's going to be coming there. That'll be something that's different. But again, I think it's actually language that makes a lot of sense. You're integrating the Microsoft list with Power Automate. You're integrating it with Power Apps. So I think naturally that makes sense there. So I think they'll make that connection pretty easily. All right, I'll pass the baton over to you guys to see what else you guys have today.
I have multiple nerdy things left. Do you have anything else you want to do, Tom?
I'll throw two out there and then you can play us off. SharePoint set default page templates. Even though it says in development, I think this is kind of rolled out, because I know that I have a site, or I have a site internally that I do my Spark 1 tips, also known as 1 Minute Office Magic. And I set up a template that I would select for the layout of everything, but it wasn't the default page for that particular site. I remembered seeing hey, you could do this. And I went out there the other day. It's like, hey, let's make that one the default. And now that comes up as the page that gets generated. So you may already have this one, but check into it. Really nice, where everybody, especially if you've got one site that has a certain purpose and the page layout has to be consistent, now you can make it default and you won't have people inadvertently forgetting to select that. The other final thing that I'll just mention, because it sounds kind of cool, is if you're using Microsoft To Do and you create a new To Do item, you can put it in specific lists that you have out there, like homework, things like that. Now it's going to suggest what list the task should go to based on AI and things like that. Again, really minor, as Jen would call it, a delighter. But the fact that it can sit here and say, hey, pick up prescription doesn't look like it's work stuff. Maybe you want to put this in your home life list, and it'll make that suggestion for you. So I think that's kind of cool. And with that, Adam, nerd us out here.
Yes, I have a couple. I'll try not to go too nerdy on it. One of my just personal things that I really like, they announced that they're bringing Microsoft Teams and Power Automate, basically a simpler integration. There's basically going to be a Power Automate tab for Teams that's basically going to give a simplified UI of what you'd see normally in Power Automate to basically bring workflows and stuff to people's fingertips. One, I think this is kind of a good step in the process of allowing Power Automate or flows to kind of get in the replacement for workflows type idea. And two, I think it opens it up for more people to be willing to try it. Power Automate's like my little pet project thing that I like it. I think it's really cool. I like telling people that I think it's really cool, and hardly anyone ever commits to do it at clients that you work with. Like, you have one person in the organization of 400 that likes it and thinks it's great, and that's just kind of how it is. Honestly, if I had more time, I'd spend more time with Power Automate as well. Honestly, it makes me sad that I don't get as much, but going through and having Power Automate be a simple tab that you can get into through Teams to add automation, I just see this as ways to make it more available to other people and to hopefully make your life easier with some basic automation. So cool, happy to see that. Coming through with some other stuff too that I thought was kind of cool. This is one that in my head, I immediately thought of one of my other customers, and I just thought this is one of the cooler updates they're doing, so I wanted to mention it. It's what they're calling collaborative calling for Microsoft Teams. So right now, if you had the hypothetical scenario that your organization used Teams, your internal IT staff can help them out, and there's a team that they can talk in, but then there's also a phone queue that they could call. That would be something that you're managing through multiple different solutions inside of Office 365. The idea behind collaborative calling is you can basically take a channel inside of Teams, tie it to a phone number and allow people to accept calls from a queue but still communicate. So say me, Tom, and Jen were all part of a service desk that was helping out a customer. We could go through and be talking together in the channel, and that could also serve as the queue for new calls to come in. So if you're an organization that has internal queues and stuff like that going on, or has customers that call in, this could be really cool. It gives you basically an all-in-one call queue and collaboration platform, which is kind of neat, and just wanted to give a shout out to that one. Outside of that, this is something that's been around for forever in other solutions. They've kind of had it in Office 365, but attack simulation training.
That's a big,
it's huge.
money
it's cool.
saver, because a lot of organizations will pay money for a whole platform to run these simulation tests. And so that could be a big, this one could be a big deal.
So you want to explain what types of attacks you would simulate, or what this would look like for the users?
Yeah, so like an attack simulation that you're using to change users would be like, this is funny because it happens to Adam. They may come and say, Adam Okas instead of Oaks or whatever wants you to open this file, and so there'll be a simulation.
Oh no, they use my actual name.
Okay, they'll use his actual name, but a fake email or something like that, and there'll be this training, and we're supposed to know from our education that the email is a bad email, and we have been trained, and we have a tool that we're supposed to hit. This looks like a phishing. This is a suspicious email, and so a sampling of our users will get hit. We will get this email, and we're supposed to hit that this is a phishing email, this is a suspicious email, and if you pass the test, it comes up and says, congratulations, you passed the test. And if you click on the link, it says, booyah, you were not supposed to click this, go take some training.
Yeah, and tell your manager, and yeah,
and so you have to go through and do this, and it's funny because Adam knows when they happen, because they used Adam.
I think Jen got self-muted there. Yeah, they use my name on the training.
So they used Adam's email on it, so they'll email Adam and say, is this file from you? Should I open this?
Yeah, so like I want to, in the face of the training, be like, oh, well, I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't send you anything. But half the time it's people I know, I'm like, yeah, man, that's phishing training. Report that shit.
Yeah,
but Jen hit it on the head. This is a really cool feature. Like, this is something that literally people pay for whole products to get. Yeah, at our old company, we used to literally, they would send out trainings. If you clicked on it, they'd give you a little inflatable fish that they got from the dollar store or something, I think, for like, hey, you fell for a phishing attack, and you'd come in one morning, that'd be like taped to your monitor or something like that to show that you failed it. But so this is cool to see. This is a great thing that's literally going to probably replace some technologies for people. And then the final one, I don't even really know what this means, but I just love the description so much, I felt like we had to mention it. It says effective controls for Microsoft 365 apps in the Admin Center. What this basically comes down to, whenever I kind of dug into it, this is ways that you can more micromanage release cycles of technologies and stuff. But to do this proper justice in the realm of people who write these updates, as an admin, we want to empower you to make informed IT decisions and make you the hero for your organization. Our new features, such as channel management, skip/rollback, and what's new in Office, will help you increase your end user satisfaction and productivity by easily managing devices on a monthly cadence and provide you with effective controls and actionable insights. But I just love how it's like, we want to make you the hero. But yeah, so basically what that really means is they're going to give you more tools to micromanage when stuff is released, how fast it is. You can turn on and off stuff like that. But they're empowering you to be a hero for your organization. So that's nice of them.
One other thing, I'll just throw it out just because you kind of brought it up in my mind when you were talking about a couple things. On Microsoft Teams, they're now going to have transcriptions for one-on-one calls. So if you're calling... if you're calling Bob and you're discussing stuff and you hang up and it's like, oh, dang, I wish I had recorded that or something, you can actually now get these calls transcribed for you, and you can save it for later use. You can turn it on and off with the control bar. I think that's awesome, because there are times where I don't necessarily want to say, can I record this, which is kind of a red flag. But if it's like, we're going to save this transcription here, and you might want to pay a little bit closer attention to what you're telling me. I think that's really cool that it's just going to kind of be an add in there where you don't really have to work really hard to get it. So
Cool. Well, I think I'm gonna if nobody else has anything, I think I'm gonna go through the list and just kind of close us out with some of the things that are in development for GCC and GCC High. So there were a couple of things that were in development for that that I wanted to be sure to mention. And let me do it this way so I don't miss any.
While
The
you're looking at that, I'll
first-
throw out one final thing. In
yeah,
line
for
with
sure.
what we were talking about with the attack center stuff, they're doing. They had an update that was extremely wordy. That basically comes down to they're doing stuff for advanced threat detection and advanced threat protection. They're doing some updates there to make it more like a threat center that you can manage. That's more in line with some of the more robust security software you see. So, kind of going back to the attack simulator, they're basically investing in those types of product to make it more of a one-stop shop for you.
Which is great. All right, so the first thing we see coming to GCC, GCCH, and DoD is simplified global notification settings
easy for you to say.
for Teams. So that's exciting. So we've seen a lot of UI changes for Teams in the enterprise space. So we're going to start to see that over there in the government space. We're also going to see, let me see, there were a couple of other things in here. Power Apps for Teams GCC High. That one's coming. That one's in development now. We are also seeing a couple more I know I saw in here. OneNote in Teams for DoD. OneNote integration is going to be enabled for the Department of Defense, hopefully in December of 2020. That's a good one there. There's a couple more forms, group forms for GCC should be coming in September 2020. So in the next 2 days. Have that there, that's in development. And then information protection, there's some updated policies coming, auto classification with sensitivity labels for SPO, Exchange, and OneDrive for the government clouds is coming. The Microsoft To Do web app is going to become available to the GCC. That's in development, hopefully October of 2020. Private channels in Office and Teams is going to be in GCC High, hopefully in December of 2020. I think those were the major ones. Adam, can you think of anything or see anything I'm missing here? I think that was it.
I think you covered the major ones. Honestly, a lot of the stuff that's coming in didn't get announced at Ignite, so it's stuff we've covered over the last couple of weeks or couple of months anyways. So.
Yeah, awesome. So again, these are all in development. So if I mentioned them, they're on the government. If you're on the government or DoD clouds, that means it's in development. So they're in the final stages of getting it developed, getting it ready to go with estimated dates of when they're going to have it wrapped up. That's what the release date means. So hopefully we'll see that soon. So we're going to get this one posted. And then tomorrow we're going to do a wrap up of all the other categories. So that will be rolling out, launch, and canceled. We're going to do that show tomorrow because we had so many for in development today. So it's been great, and we look forward to tomorrow's show. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys. You're champs if you sat through this whole thing.
Even Tamara couldn't. Just kidding. She had to work.
Oh, too funny.